All right, looks like we are live. Welcome everybody to Standing for Truth. My name is Donnie and I am your host and moderator for tonight's debate on evolution. I have Dr. Dino and Luca Medugno with me to debate the question, is all life related through common ancestry? Luca Medugno says yes, and Ken Hovind says no. And so with that, Luca, we are going to hand it right over to you for a 10-minute opening statement on the question, again, is all life related through common ancestry? And so, Luca, if you needed your screen shared, I'm here to help.
Okay, right away.
And so as you're doing that, let me just let the audience know what we're doing tonight. We want to get right into the fun, and so we're going to get right into 10-minute openings from both Luca and Dr. Kent, the science gent. And then we're just going to have a free-flowing discussion, and we are going to really hone in and focus on one point at a time. And once we've discussed each major point for the debate, we're going to jump right into some audience questions and answers. And so please just make sure you're tagging me with your questions at Standing for Truth, and that way I won't miss them. Okay, Luca, I do see your screen shared, and good. So you're good to go.
Okay, so it's all life related. So my answer is, of course, yes. And we will play a little game tonight. One is not like the other. Of course, we will not go all the way to us. It's a little bit too long to do so, but we'll try to play this game for a little bit. So one is not like the other. First slide, you can see here 4 kind of organism. So now we will see what kind of organisms are. And here you can see virus, animal cell, plant cell, bacteria. Of course, that's also cell. Here you can see how they are made, as you can see. Some have a cell, some other not. So one is not like the other. Which is one?
This one.
This one is not like the other. Viruses are not usually considered alive in the whole spectrum. They are somewhat alive, but they are different from us. They do not have a cell. So let's do it again. One is not like the other. And what we have here, for the most part, we already seen these things, apart for one. What we have here, a fungi cell, animal cell.
Luca,
yes.
Let me stop you there, my good man, because the audience is saying that the stream is not. Let me see. It says the stream's live, but then the audience is saying that it's not currently broadcasting. And so that's a first for me. So let me, unless it's pre-recorded. Okay, give me 1 second. I need to figure this out. Give me 1 second. Because it's Randall, are you in the building, brother?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it looks like I'm hearing some feedback on your end, Randall.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like it's good now. Randall, can you hear that feedback, the echo from me?
Yeah, it's because I got the speakers on the stage. So I can't hear you.
Can you hear him, Donnie?
Yes.
Can you understand him? He speaks Alabamian.
Yeah, I can hear him, and I don't think I hear myself anymore, so that's good. No, it looks like there's some kind of echo. If you can figure that out, Randall. I'm gonna mute Randall. I'm gonna mute you guys on your end while you. Oh, you know what? Just one sec. Okay, so let me let the audience know. I'm not sure what the issue is. It looks like we are live now in front of the audience, and so that's good. The broadcast says we've been live for about 10 minutes. I don't know why it just went live, but we're good now. So we are live. And what we're going to do then, Luca, is allow you to just restart your opening statement, if you don't mind, just so the audience can see it. So
Do not worry. Was everything okay with my presentation? It was all good.
Yeah, everything was coming in good, but I don't know why the first few minutes weren't broadcasted, but it is broadcasted now. So there we go. Everything is good. So you're good, Luca. That was just a warm up, and now
Yes.
just restart your presentation so the audience can see it. And we're starting now, Luca. So feel free to share your screen.
Okay, you can see my screen now.
Yes, you're good. You're good.
Okay, we go. So it's all life related. I say yes, of course. And as I said before, we will play a little game tonight. Not for too long, only for a little bit. It's a very long game if you play it all, but you all know the game. One is not like the other. So we will see what's the intruder in those set of pictures. Let's start with the first one. So you can see those organisms. One is not like the others. So what is the intruder here? Let's see. Virus, bacteria, animal cell, or plant cell? Which is what? So let's see. You can see here all organisms aside from virus have cells. So bacteria and animal and plant cells have, of course, cells. So one is not like the other.
This one.
Is not like the other. Slide number 2. One is not like the other. You can see there the same picture aside from one that's new. Let's see what is what. Fungi, cells, animal cells, plant cells, and bacteria. One is not like the other. Which one? So all those cells are more complex than the bacteria. They do have a nucleus. They do have, and we will see that later, a different kind of DNA. So one is not like the other. The one that's not an eukaryotic cell. So the bacteria is not like the other.
This one.
So third slide. One is not like the other. Now we have more recognizable organisms. So what we have here? Plants, animals, fungi, and protists. One is not like the other. Which one? So I'll say protists are not like the other. Why? Because they are made by only one cell. Everything else is multicellular here.
This one.
And the last one is not like the other. You can see there a cicada, a mammal, a nematode, and a plant. One is not like the other. Which one? Well, I'll say the plant. Why? All the others are animals. Even though this is an insect, a mammal, and a nematode.
This one.
So Why I did bring up this game? Because I want to show you that it's not that far-fetched that we are all related. If we look in the right places, it's evident that we have evidence for it. You cannot say that's evidence, but for sure, it's not that absurd, and that's quite important to see that. But let's see a set of evidence. The mitochondria. Why it's important? As you see, mitochondria, a mitochondrion, singular, mitochondria is plural, is an organelle inside the cell. It's important because it's the power plant of the cell. Why I think it's evidence for evolution? Well, we have some reason for it. We are two hypotheses for the origin of the mitochondria: the endosymbiotic theory and the autogenous theory. So the first one is the one that we will see, the more widely accepted theory. It's just an hypothesis right now. And autogenous theory, it's the hypothesis that the mitochondria came from itself. Basically, the cell was the one creating the mitochondria. But we have quite some evidence for the endosymbiotic theory. What's that? This theory states that the mitochondria was once a bacteria, and it was eaten basically by our ancestor, and it became in due time what is now. What kind of evidence we have for it? We have a lot. Sorry for the wall of text. Oh, sorry. Okay. What kind of evidence we have for that? Mitochondria use a kind of division that are used only by bacteria. If we remove mitochondria or chloroplast, the cell cannot produce more. The proteins in the wall of the mitochondria are basically the same of bacteria. So that's quite evidence. And also DNA is different from our DNA, and we will see that in a minute. There are evidence for in the genome for a relationship between our mitochondria and some kind of bacteria, and they use a particular compound, amino acid, used by bacteria. All those evidence are definite proof for that? No. And that's quite something. Just think about it. What I've shown to you is not even a theory, and we have so much evidence. So why it's important and what's the difference? Look at that. That's the DNA of a mitochondria, and you can see that that's a singular basically ring of DNA, a double helix, and that's just it. The double helix DNA, and it form a ring. It's a very simple structure, and you can find it in our body, just in the mitochondria. And here you can see how it's made. It's a very simple structure, and you found this kind of structure just in bacteria, basically. And in our nucleus, what kind of DNA you can find? That's chromatin, and that's completely different. Here you can see the structure, and it's wrapped in around those proteins. And why it's important? Because you can store the DNA in a smaller place. You can do it in a more compact way. Basically, that's what are chromosomes, compacted DNA. The one in the mitochondria cannot do that. So it's quite relevant that we have two different kind of DNA. And the one more similar to a bacteria is inside mitochondria. That's quite something. So those were my evidence. I thank you for anything. If you have question, of course, this is my mail, my YouTube channel, my very small YouTube channel. And thank you for watching.
Okay, Luca, appreciate that. Also, thank you.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
No,
I did not say.
we're good. Appreciate your patience as well.
Okay,
And,
we are good.
Redoing some of that opening statement, but we've gotten the audience to tell us everything is good, video is good, audio is good. So, Kat, we are going to hand it over to you, brother, for 10 minutes. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Okay, all I heard for the last 10 minutes was him just stating a fact like it's true, and we're supposed to just accept it because he said so. There is no evidence of any animal or plant ever in the history of mankind being observed to change into anything else. They put these pictures in our textbook and tell the kids the humans are related to birds. Well, how do you know? Well, we have a line drawn between them. Oh, I could draw a line between a golf ball and a Corvette too. Would that prove they're related? They put these lines on paper and make up these family trees and say the dinosaurs and the ladybugs and the pine trees and the worms have a common ancestor. This is not science. The topic of this debate is all life related to a common ancestor? The answer is no. There's no evidence for that. If someone wishes to believe that, they can. The fact that we both have mitochondria that is similar to, say, a plant or some other animal, that would prove a common designer. See, Luca is stuck in the box thinking you have to think inside this box. He knows evolution happened. Now, how do we prove it? Think outside the box, Luca. Evolution didn't happen. There's no evidence of any animal or plant ever changing to something else. Just because they draw lines on paper is not science. But the textbooks in school teach the kids from the time they're little. Here's a biology textbook, high school, 10th grade. It said all the many forms of life on Earth today are descended from a common ancestor. This is propaganda. This is not science. You cannot show that you're related to a ladybug. You say, well, we have similar DNA. That would prove a common designer. The same designer wrote the code. Microsoft Word has thousands of lines of code that are identical with Microsoft PowerPoint. That doesn't prove nobody wrote the code. So what you showed, and when you showed the different pictures of the four different, which ones are not like the other, Luca, none of them are like the other. The animals are not like the plants or the fungi or the bacteria. None of them are like each other. You may have decided which kind of category you're going to, I could say, what's the similarity between me and the car in the parking lot? We both have red on. Okay, that doesn't prove anything. So none of them, if you put your pictures back up, you can see, wow, an animal cell is not like a plant cell. There are some similarities because the same guy designed them. They both have a nucleus, but it might be bound in a membrane, might be a eukaryote. I understand. And it might have mitochondria, might have a DNA code. That is not evidence of relationship. I wish you guys could think outside the box. But the textbooks say everything's related and came from a population of primitive unicellular organisms. This is propaganda. This is not science. Then this textbook admits no traces of those events remain. Yeah, real handy. Our kids' textbooks are full of these family trees, and they taught this from the time they're in kindergarten, and they believe it because that's what the book says. Yes, boys and girls, the humans and the ferns have a common ancestor with the sharks and the starfish, and the octopus. There it is. So yes, if you give a protozoa enough time, it'll slowly turn to a biology teacher. All this is propaganda. This isn't science. I just point out, you guys are welcome to believe this. If you think you're related to a jellyfish, okay. But that's science is what we can observe. We observe jellyfish making jellyfish babies. That's been observed thousands of times. We observe birds making bird babies. That's observed. Okay, that is science. Frogs make baby frogs, without exception. So if someone wishes to believe that they're related to a frog or a bird or a reptile, that's their privilege. They can believe whatever they want, but they shouldn't call it science. Science comes from the word seer, the Latin word to know. What do we know? We know frogs produce frogs. That we know. We've seen it. That's observable. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. We can observe frogs produce baby frogs. We can observe jellyfish produce baby jellyfish. That's been seen. That's science. That's science. It is not science to draw a line on paper and say the jellyfish came from protozoa. Nobody's ever seen protozoa produce anything other than protozoa. And many of these single-celled creatures have a very short lifespan. They're born, grow up, and get married and have babies in 8 hours. So you can see 3 generations in one day. They've observed, I think it's 45,000 generations now of protozoa in the laboratory. After 45,000 generations, they're still producing baby protozoa. No exceptions. I wish you guys could just admit these trees that you draw as lines on paper are not science. It's a religious worldview. You're welcome to keep it. But you should not be charging everybody to pay your religion, have your religion be taught in our school system. This textbook says, evolution, life on Earth is one big extended family. This is the topic of the debate tonight. These charts they draw, coming back from a common ancestor millions of years ago, are nothing but propaganda. They show everything going back to one of the types of bacteria. And then it slowly evolved. Do you really believe a bacteria turned into a whale over millions of years? You realize there are quite a few differences between a bacteria and a whale. Okay? The whale has a lot of features, bones, heart, lungs, skin, that bacteria don't have. So how did it gain this stuff? Where is the mechanism? Where's the scientific evidence for a bacteria gaining something to change from a bacteria to a whale? The textbooks say it happened, and we're supposed to believe it. They make these fake family trees. All someone did is draw a bunch of lines on paper. That's all it is. It's a cartoon class. This isn't science. This is religion class. Yes, boys and girls, we are related. Look at this. We all came from a common ancestor. There it is. Charlie Darwin related to a chimpanzee. That one I might believe, okay? But he's also related to a kangaroo and a frog. There he is down there. All goes back to this common ancestor. There it goes. The cannabis. Oh, they've been smoking too much of that. Goes back to the common ancestor. All they're doing is drawing lines on paper, saying the snail is related, goes back to the same ancestor as everything. I wish you guys could just admit we have a religious worldview. We believe it happened, but we don't observe it. Okay, then you should keep your religion at home and teach it to anybody that wants to come to your church and listen to it. I don't charge everybody to listen to my teaching what I believe on religion. They can come if they want or don't. Turn it off if they don't like it. But you guys want to require that all the kids in public schools, I know it's 2 a.m. over there, Luca. Thank you for staying up so late, but I know you're in Italy. I know it's just sad that this is called science. How it ended up in science class, I don't know, but it did. Over the last 150 years, those who believe in this religion have been very good at promoting their religion at taxpayer expense. They have taken over the school system. I agree. They won that battle. It doesn't mean it's true, though. The fact that somebody takes command doesn't make it true. You had dictators in Italy down through the centuries. They took over by force. It doesn't mean they're right. It just means they got bigger sword or bigger gun. That's all. The evolution propaganda is all it is. It's a religious worldview. They show they branch off. Look at that. It branched off. Prokaryotes, eukaryotes have a common ancestor. New fossil eliminates this part of the family tree. This is pure baloney. No fossil counts as evidence for evolution. None. When you find a fossil, all you could prove is it died. You could not prove it had any children that lived. You could not prove it had children that were different. Why would we think a bone from the dirt can do something that no other animal today can do. All these trees of life with their branches of our ancestors are a lot of nonsense. I agree. Mary Leakey finally admitted the truth. Praise God. You are a primate, this textbook says. I'm sorry, I am not, okay? I'm a human being made in God's image. The apes, the primates, the monkeys, orangutans, bonobos are all very different. Different from each other and certainly different from humans. Now, if you wish to believe their common ancestor with those, believe whatever you want, but stop calling it science. They put these charts in our textbook. Look at this, a family portrait. The humans are related to the, what do we got here? Gibbons, monkeys, lemurs, tarsiers, all on there. The Hobbit family tree. Hobbits are an island dwarf, Homo erectus. Then their evolution in isolation involved a lot of interesting evolutionary reversals to a primitive state. All this is propaganda. I wish you folks could see this. They draw these lines on paper. The kids are tested on this stuff. It's not science. Luca, last universal common ancestor. That's your name, your middle name anyway, Luca. This is propaganda. I'm sorry, that's all it is. There is no common ancestor between bacteria and humans. There's a common designer, but all we've observed are bacteria make baby bacteria. That's all anybody has seen. All this, these family trees are a lot of nonsense. Mary Leakey admitted it. That's evolution is not science. It's not evident. There's no evidence for it. So show the evidence tonight, Luca. Your turn.
Okay, Dr. Dino, thank you so much for that 10-minute opening statement. Luca and Kent, that concludes your opening statements. And so what we're going to do now is take each point made in your specific opening, Luca, and we are just going to engage them one by one. And so, Luca, let me hand it over to you since Kent just ended with his opening statement. Pick whatever argument you'd like to start with, and we'll go from there.
The first one with one is not like the other. It was not evidence for evolution, and I can agree with that. My point was a little bit different. I want to show that it's not that incredible to pair up organisms like that. If you think about bacteria and us, we both have a cell. That's something. It's something that we do not have with the viruses and other organisms that do not have a cell are quite peculiar too. We have life that does not have a cell. That's something. And we can then go up a little bit and see that we have all different kind of life. Like we have a cell, yes, but we have different kind of cells. But us, plants and fungi, we have the same kind of cell. We have a cell with a nucleus, with a kind of DNA that's different from bacterial one. I show that chromatin, and that's something real. Why we do have the same kind of DNA with a plant? Why we do not have something different? Because it's not like we just have only one kind of DNA. It's not like that other nuclear acids do not exist. They do. So why we have the same of a plant or a fungi does not make sense if we are made to be special.
Luca, and just to reiterate your question to Kent, to make sure that I understand the audience, are you asking Kent, why do we share similar DNA with plants and fungi?
Yeah, not just the DNA, all those characteristics, like we have a nucleus, we have the same kind of DNA, because chromatin is different from bacterial DNA or the DNA inside the mitochondria. So why we do have those kind of features? If we are special as humans, why we are not built different?
Okay, appreciate it. Kent, we'll hand it over to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Donnie, if you could, let's limit it to one topic at a time. You covered about 8 topics there in a row, and I don't have time to write them all down, let alone talk about all of them. So why are we similar in DNA structure to other creatures? As I said, that would not prove a common ancestor. That would be just as much evidence for a common designer. I think you'll find a lot of the cars made in Italy have similarities. They probably have headlights in the front and taillights in the back. Does that prove they evolved from each other, or that's a good design? It's a good design to have the headlights in the front. It's a good design to have a roof on your car. That's a good design. Have seats in there where you can sit down. It's a good design. It's a good idea. It works, okay? So you're assuming something totally crazy. What you're seeing is correct. You're seeing that there are similarities. I agree. Then you're concluding, making the wrong conclusion, that they're related. No, they're not related. They have the common designer. So I think it's important that there be some similarities between the plants and animals, because the brown cow can eat the green grass. If it was totally different, he couldn't digest it. The fact that the brown cow can eat the green grass and give the white milk and churn it and make the yellow butter, and I eat it and get the blonde hair, that's a pretty cool design. If indeed everything was totally different as you would wish it to be, we could only eat each other. So I think the symbiotic relationship and the similarities are designed to allow for symbiotic relationships in nature. As I said, brown cow can eat the green grass and turn it into white milk. That's because they have similar DNA structure, they have similar cell structure, and they can digest it. So this is not proof of a common ancestry. You have chosen to look at it and see, wow, a relationship. I look at it and say, wow, same designer. That's all. But yours is not science. I cannot prove mine is science either. I believe they have a common designer. You believe they have a common ancestor. We both have a religion. The difference is, I admit mine's a religion. You don't admit yours is a religion. You think it is part of science, and it's not. It's a religion. Go ahead.
Yes, but my question was why we are not built different, because we do not need to have the same DNA to digest something. Like you said, you can digest something that has no DNA if you want to. It does not work like that. You can just sugar, and sugar does not have DNA, so it's not a problem. Also, we can have DNA that can interact with other kind of DNA. Just think about RNA and DNA. They do work with each other, but they are different. So we could be built different if the designer, if he does exist, wants to. So if a designer exists, he builds us in the same way of an animal, a plant, and a fungi. And we do have much in common with a bacteria too. We do have a cell. We are different from viruses, for example. So we do see a pattern. And if we are designed, why we are designed that way? Because we do not need to.
Okay. If you think you can build a better human, I encourage you to try. Okay. I would ask you, what would you change? I think what we see is amazingly complex. Each single cell you're talking about is more complex than the whole city of New York. Bad example. That's pretty messed up. Okay. Each cell is more complex than the whole internet system of the whole world. One cell in your body, and you probably have 100 trillion cells in your body. Each one contains 100 trillion atoms. And they all work together pretty amazingly. When the cells get ready to die, they reproduce themselves, die, and now there's another one ready to take its place. The cell reproduction by mitosis or meiosis, it works amazingly well. How would you design it better? Would you want 3 arms? Now where are you going to find a shirt? Nobody makes shirts with 3 sleeves. So I think I look at this and say, I think the design is wonderful, especially when you consider we are a copy off of our parents, who are a copy off of their parents. If you take a computer, put a memory stick in your computer and copy any program to that device, then copy the copy, and then copy the copy of the copy. They say after, what is it, Randall, 24 generations, it's unreadable, it's illegible. After 24 generations, it doesn't work. It won't work at all. We are way more than 24 generations away from Adam. But you want to be thousands of generations away from a monkey or a chimpanzee of some kind. And I just say, look, that's not science. That's all. I just keep saying, you guys believe this stuff, but it's not evidenced by real observable evidence. You can claim you're related to a monkey, but see, what you're talking about here, why are we not built different? I like it just like it is. Anybody else? What's wrong with the way we're built? The fact that we have similar cell structure to other animals, it works. It's a good design. I bet a lot of cars in Italy have 4 tires touching the ground and they're round. It's a good design that works. So it's a good design to have a nucleus in the cell, the brain of the cell, which has the DNA, which is more complex than any computer code ever written by man. The DNA from one cell of your body is more complex than your entire computer you're working on. And you think it happened by chance. Nobody designed it. I don't understand. Whoever taught you that, you should go smack them and get your money back. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I remain on my point, because still, what we can do better? Well, a lot. Give us chloroplast, the ability to produce our own food just with sun and air. That would be awesome. Give us mitochondria with or same kind of DNA. I cannot transmit my mitochondrial DNA. Does that DNA is dead with me? I cannot pass down that DNA to my son. I will not have a son. I do not have a wife right now, but even if I had, I could not pass down those genes because I simply cannot, and that's a problem. Why we cannot not do that does not make sense unless we have something like evolution. Evolution is not a perfect mechanism, and so we are not perfect. We have a lot of strange things inside our bodies, and that's totally makes sense. We are not perfect, not at all, and there are a few problems with that. And also, if we are special, why we cannot find evidence for that? Because we have the same characteristic of all other organisms. We have something different. Of course, we are more smart. We have our kind of strong suits, but we are still animals de facto. So why is that if we are special? Because we could be special. There are ways to do it, but we are not. We do have the same DNA, chromatin, and that's different from our mitochondria. Why? Why do not use chromatin inside a mitochondria? That's quite something. And it's not fiction. It's not something I'm not making it up. We can see that right now. We can compare the genome of the mitochondria to his ancestor right now, and that's science. It's not like I'm doing things just like that.
Okay, you said we are not perfect. I would agree, I have aches and pains, but remember, you and I are copies hundreds of generations later from the original. The original, I think, was perfect. Man has chosen to rebel against God and sin, and we have broken his laws. Therefore, we have aches and pains and problems. But God promised in his word he will fix that one day. He will give us new bodies and take us to heaven if you've been born again into God's family. So that's what I did 54 years ago. I asked him to save me and forgive me, and I've got a promise of eternal life. I don't think you have that promise. I wish you did. But the fact that we're not perfect, therefore, nobody made us. I think there are lots of examples down through history where people have made things that are not perfect, but they were still made. Some things are designed, and they're poorly designed. Bad design does not mean no designer. Darwin thought that the eyeball might be poorly designed. It's incredibly complex. He said, well, your argument, you're saying God wouldn't have done it this way, therefore it must have evolved. That's a silly argument for evolution. We're talking about a copy off a copy off a copy. Here's a pretty poor design, stairs that lead to nowhere. There's a poor design, washing machine into the bathroom. There's a poor design. You want to go potty on one of those sitting 2 inches away from somebody? I don't think so. That's a poor design, but it's still designed. First of all, I don't think we're poorly designed. However, even if we were, that's not evidence for evolution. You're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Poor design is not evidence for evolution. I think we're amazingly designed. And I think that you said we are still animals. You may choose to believe that if you'd like. But see, man is making these classification systems. And it's some man putting man in with other animals. The animals don't want us. They don't think we're part of them. I've said many times on our farm here at Dinosaur Adventureland in Alabama, if you turn all the animals loose, they'll find the one that they want. The squirrels always look for female squirrels. They don't even consider looking at the cow or the donkey or the mule. All they want is another squirrel. They know what the same kind is. The Bible says they will always bring forth after their kind. That's all anybody's ever seen. And if you can't marvel at the amazing design, I feel sorry for you. You're missing out on knowing the creator of the universe, who would like to be your friend and savior. And he is mine. Okay, so I think your argument that we are not perfect, therefore we evolved, doesn't hold any weight at all. The fact that we are copies off of copies off of copies off of copies off of copies and not perfect is perfectly understandable. If the original copy was perfect, 5,000 generations later, it's going to be messed up a little bit. But it still works pretty good. I like it. Go ahead.
Yes, my point is a little bit different. My first point was that it's not that absurd that we are related to plants and fungi. Because if we look at the cellular level, we are similar enough to see those similarities. We have much more in common with a plant than a bacteria, a lot more in common. When we did discuss a couple of times more, and you said in one of these debates that a bacteria is still a bacteria. But if we look at bacteria, we have an entire kingdom of bacteria. So it's like saying that we are animals, the same amount of difference. If we look at bacteria and us, we are quite different. So we have more in common with a plant than a bacteria. And we can go much closer. If we look at a cow, we are much more similar to a cow than a bacteria, than a spider, for example. A spider is still an animal, but it does not have bones. We do have bones, like fish, like a lot of other organisms, but not spider and insects. If you look all those steps, you see a pattern, and that's something. If we are special, if we are something else, why we cannot see that? Because you can see the similarities between us and other mammals, because we are mammals. And I think that everyone knows that. So what's the problem? Maybe we were designed, but if we are, someone designed something that evolved to this form. That's the most realistic explanation with the data I can see right now.
Okay, let's see. You said several points there. We have more in common with plants than bacteria. Again, that is not evidence that we're related to them or that we evolved from them. That's the way the designer made it. I think you'd find all the cars made by General Motors have a lot of similarities. They generally use lug nuts on their wheels. That's a good design. It works great. So the fact that there are similarities, I would agree, but your conclusion is wrong. Your conclusion is, therefore, we're related. And no, that's where you went crazy. I agree. But see, this is man making all these classification systems. Who's deciding that humans go in the same category as cows? The cows don't care how we classify them. All we know is from observable history, cows make baby cows every time. Humans make baby humans, no exceptions. If you wish to believe long ago they were related, that's religion. It's not science. We never observe this changing. The fact that we have similarities does not prove a common ancestry. I think it's evidence of a common designer, but that's not the purpose of this debate tonight. You believe all life forms have a common ancestor. I don't think you've presented any evidence. You say that there are similarities. My counter is very simple. That doesn't prove ancestry. That might prove common designer. It might prove nothing at all. We have decided to look at similarities. Plant cells all have a cell wall. Yeah, maybe they're designed to have a cell wall so they're stiffer and can hold up, grow taller, and hold more weight. That's not evidence of a common ancestry. But then you said you see a pattern here. I see a pattern too. I think the designer was amazing, and he put things together so that, like I said, the brown cow can eat the green grass, the animal eating the plant, and giving an animal a milk. Wow. I think that's amazing. I think it was designed. So and you said, we are mammals. Again, that's an arbitrary classification system that somebody's putting on us. I could say we're alive. Okay, how about this? We can move. Cars can move. Therefore, we're related to cars. This is the type of logic you're giving here, Luca. Yes, there are similarities. It does not prove common ancestry. You can believe it does, and I'm sure you do, but that's not science. So where's the scientific evidence that any animal has ever produced offspring other than the same kind? Cows make cows, dogs make dogs, no exceptions. Where is the evidence? Go ahead.
So, yes, you are right. The first point was not about evidence, was all about making you say that we do see a pattern. So it's not that absurd to make this hypothesis that we are all related. I'm very happy to see you saying that. So, yes, the evidence. Let's talk about the evidence. I did bring some about the mitochondria. It's not even a theory, so I did bring something that it's weaker than usual. It's just an hypothesis, but we do have a lot of evidence. So what are those evidence? We have organelles inside our cells, and those structures have something interesting in them. So we do see a different kind of DNA inside those structures. Why we have that? And we can analyze this DNA, and we can find, and we did find, a relationship with bacteria. Why? If these organelles are just designed this way.
Am I unmuted? Okay. Yep. You're saying we find a relationship between us and bacteria, and why is it designed that way? You are choosing to see a relationship. I don't think the bacteria want us. The bacteria always produce baby bacteria. There are simply no exceptions to that. And you're seeing similarities. We both have a nucleus in the cell. We both have DNA. Again, that's an amazing design. I think you'd find a lot of the calculator watches and computers and cell phones all have computer code in there. Does that prove a relationship, or does that prove a common designer is making those things? Okay. I look at it and say, wow, it's a good design. It works. Computer code, binary code. But if you look at the cell and the DNA in your body, it's quaternary code, CATG, not just zeros and ones. It's millions of times more complex than the cells in your body or in the plant or the bacteria. So I'm sorry, you are choosing to believe that it shows a relationship. I have to disagree. You can believe that if you want, but you didn't show proof that that's how it is. You just simply believe it, that's all.
But my point is why we do not have chromatin inside those structures. Why we do have ring DNA. That's basically bacterial DNA. Why we do have that inside our cells? We do not need to. We could have just chromatin. Why do not have the most advanced and better suited DNA inside the mitochondria? Why ancestral form? Because
Luca, I just want to clarify, especially so the
yes.
audience can follow along. Are you saying that within the mitochondrial DNA exists bacterial DNA?
The same form of DNA that's inside the bacteria. It's a different kind of DNA. It's ring DNA. It's more simple. Chromatin is a little bit different. Is bind to proteins to store in a more efficient way the DNA. We do not see that inside the mitochondria, and that's a problem because we do have DNA inside our cells. Why not use the same kind of DNA we do have in the nucleus? We do have a different kind of DNA,
Okay, so you're saying in the mitochondria.
form of DNA, more simple, a simple double helix strand, and that's less efficient. We can see the relationship because we did look for that with the mitochondria and another bacteria that still existing today. So we do have evidence for relationship at the genetic level. Why we do see that? Because it's not needed to have something like that.
Okay, Kent, if you'd like to respond, go ahead.
I think mankind knows about 0.1% of what can be known or will be known one day about DNA. It was just discovered in the last few hundred years. Okay, we don't know all of it, but it is the most complex code in the universe. Nobody's ever seen more complex code. Each cell of your body, of humans, contains 46 chromosomes. Each chromosome, if you unwound the chromosome strand, it would be 6 feet long. If you tied all the chromosomes together from one person, it would reach from here to the moon and back, I think, several hundred times. That's just the DNA from one person. And you think that code is simple? Each rung of that ladder that's twisted around like that is carrying information. And it can repair itself. Our computers can't do that. If you get a problem in your computer and one line of code is corrupted, it's gone, it's shot, it's done. The DNA in the humans and in the bacteria can correct themselves. The DNA code is not simple. You said a minute ago it was simple DNA. There is no such thing as simple DNA. It is really, really, really complex. Now, if you wish to believe all this happened by chance, you're welcome to, but that's not science. What we observe is this is way too complex to have happened by chance. It's like saying I'm going to throw these dice down, I'm going to throw a 7 every time for 400 years and throw the dice 20 times a second and get every time, 400 years, always going to get a 7. It's not going to happen. If you say I'm going to flip this coin, it's going to be heads every time for the next 40,000 times. I'm sorry, I don't believe you. You think DNA is simple. I don't believe that for a second. I think DNA is so complex, it had to have an amazing, really smart, and fortunately loving designer. So I'm sorry you were taught that, and I'm sorry you're teaching it to others, but it's not science, Luca. We do not need certain things, you said. I don't think we know what we need and don't. For years, they said the human body has 137 vestigial structures. You don't need your tonsils. You don't need your adenoids. You don't need your tailbone. You don't need your various different things. And they were nilly-willy taking things out. Now they've discovered a use for all of them. There's no such thing as a vestigial structure. But if there was, that's the opposite of evolution. That's losing. Where's the evidence of a nascent structure, of us gaining something? There isn't any. There's no evidence of DNA gaining. DNA is incredibly complex. And you're thinking it happened by chance. Do you think a book in your library could just come about by random scattering of letters on the page? You couldn't get a single word, let alone a whole book that makes sense. So I'm sorry, you make these statements like it's just so, and you call DNA simple, like, well, Luca said it's simple, so it must be. No, it's not simple, okay? DNA is more complex than Microsoft PowerPoint and Microsoft Word combined. It's not simple. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, but DNA it's mostly the same. You can pick up bacterial DNA and insert that in our genome. You can do that. Uh, it's not my point. Chromatin is something different. You have the double strand helix of the DNA wrapped around some proteins, the histones. That kind of structure, you can find it only in our nucleus, not in the mitochondria. Why is that? It's a better way to store the DNA. Why we do not have that inside the mitochondria? Why the DNA is stored differently, in a more primitive way? That's the point. And why we see things like ribosomes inside the mitochondria.
Well, Luca, let's do one
They are
question at a
different.
time. If I could jump
Yes,
in, Luca.
but
One
it's the same. There are some structure inside the mitochondria that are different, and they are more similar to bacteria. So it's not like I'm bringing up more points.
Right.
It's the same point. There are structure inside the mitochondria. Basically, they are the same of bacterial cells, and why we have that inside our cells.
Okay, so if I could reiterate, just so we're all on the same page, you're looking to the nuclear DNA compartment, the mitochondrial DNA compartment, and you're asking Kent, why don't both compartments store DNA in the exact same way?
Yes, because one is better. Chromatin is better because you can store in like the chromosomes. You can have chromosomes only with chromatin. You cannot do that.
Okay, so you think in the nuclear DNA compartment, the DNA
it's not a thinking. We do know that. I show it inside the
okay,
mitochondria.
let's hand it. Look, I think we're on the same page. No worries. Yes. Okay, Kent, go ahead if you would like to respond to that. Go ahead.
Well, if he doesn't like the way the DNA is storing information, make a better one. Can you make one? Can you make one cell? Can all the scientists in the world make a single cell, like a skin cell? No. All the scientists in the world can't make one cell. And you think it happened by chance. I'm sorry. Who taught you that? Get your money back. So they're not simple. The fact that they store information differently isn't evidence for evolution. Different secretaries store information differently in their office. Some want to store it all in hard copy in a file cabinet. Some want to store it all in the computer. Some want to store it all in their mind. There's different ways of storing information. So what? That proves something? Doesn't prove evolution, that's for sure. Any of those ways of storing information is complex. So the fact that bacteria stores information differently than humans or plants, that doesn't prove relationship. I don't know how you get that. So I'm lost here. If that's evidence for evolution, you lost me on that one.
Luca, if you'd like to respond, yes. Or I understand
I can give you more example if you like to. Like the membrane of the mitochondria, it's different from our cell membrane. It's more similar to bacterial membrane. That's a whole lot of structure that we find inside those organelles that are basically very, very similar to bacterial structure, like the ribosomes. They are different inside the mitochondria. If you know, of course, those are structures that translate the DNA basically to make the proteins. And inside the mitochondria, we do find a different kind of ribosomes, more basically the same of the bacterial ones. They are different from our one inside the nucleus.
Look, if I could.
That's a whole list of structure that they do prove that relationship within mitochondria and chloroplast, of course, and bacteria.
And Luca, if I could break this down in a way
yes.
that the audience will better understand, are you basically arguing that the mitochondrial DNA compartment of the human genome, because it has similar structures to bacterial DNA, originally came from bacteria?
Well, it's not just the DNA. The DNA is one line of evidence.
Okay, the
Then we have
structures and
ribosomes. As you know, there are different kind of things. We have the
well,
cell
I'm just
membrane.
going to stop you right there, Luca, just because I just want you
All
to.
of those things. It's not just the DNA.
All right, but
If you
I
can
want you to make the
understand.
audience, I want you to make it understandable to the audience. Why is this evidence for evolution? You're saying that the mitochondrial DNA, everything about it, the structures, the organelles, it originated from a bacteria. Is that your position?
Well, yes, that's the hypothesis, and I did
Okay.
list all the evidence for it, and there are quite a few. I think I did bring some evidence for it.
Okay, I appreciate it, Luca. Kent, if you'd like to respond, and then Luca, I'd like us to move to the next point as we did just hit the hour mark.
Okay.
And I appreciate the discussion, very cordial so far. Kent, if you'd like a response to that, go ahead.
I would then point out still, it's really complex, and any similarities is not proof of a common designer. It's just as much proof of a common creator. The same guy wrote the code. I think you'll find all the books in my library, all of them, thousands and thousands of books, have the same code, 26 letters in the English alphabet. That doesn't prove they're related. That's the code with which you write English. God chose to write life forms with a code called DNA. So if there are similarities, it's not proof of a common ancestry. Why you can't see that, I don't know, but it's not. I think it's evidence of a common designer. Same guy wrote the code. The code is way more complex than any library in the world. And so it doesn't happen by chance. I don't know how you can believe that it happened by chance, but if you want to, okay. I just point out that's not science. That's a religion. You believe they're related. So you're supposed to show evidence tonight why all life forms have a common ancestor. The evidence you've shown, the similarities or differences in DNA and mitochondria and ribosomes, is not proof for evolution. It's something you've chosen to believe. You drew a line on paper connecting them. I don't like, erase that line, please. They're not connected. Go ahead.
Okay, so what kind of evidence would you accept for this kind of mechanism? So if I need to bring evidence for the relationship between mitochondria and bacteria, what kind of evidence would you accept?
Okay, science comes from the Latin word "scire." It means to know. What do we know? Knowledge gained by observations, experiments to describe and explain the world around us, okay? I would like to see some science to show any bacteria ever producing a non-bacteria. Bacteria have been having babies for a long time. All they make are baby bacteria. Or whether it's mitosis or meiosis, they might just split in half, whether it's conjugal or not, but still, it's a bacteria. Where is the observable, I want to see it, observable evidence of a bacteria turning into anything else? Your charts in school, in the textbooks, show these family trees. Where is the evidence for these trees? Where's the evidence of a ladybug ever producing a non-ladybug or coming from a non-ladybug? I'm just saying there is no evidence. Real science is what we can observe, not theoretical. Show me the observation of a DNA forming itself or of a bacteria producing something non-bacteria. You said, and you are correct, there's a whole family of bacteria, I don't know, 20,000 different kinds probably of bacteria. I agree. They always produce bacteria, and really they always produce the same kind of bacteria. I don't know the names of all 20,000 of them, but there's a lot of them. All we've seen is with science, what we can observe, we observe bacteria make more bacteria. Nobody's ever seen anything other than that. So what evidence would I accept? You show me a bacteria turning slowly over millions of years or millions of generations into a whale or anything else other than a bacteria. That would be science. It's never been demonstrated. It's only believed by faith. It's a religion. That's all it is.
Yes, I did bring in one of our debates. I cannot remember what debate, and I'm operating on a new PC, so that's kind of a problem. But I did show you an example of endosymbiosis. So we do have an example in real life of endosymbiosis. So we do know that that process that I described is real, that can happen, and I show you why we think that happened to the mitochondria. And all the line of evidence that I shown to you tonight, and they are quite a few, they are not even enough to be considered a theory, just to understand how much evidence you need to call something a theory. So yeah, I did show that. I did show in previous debates some evidence for organisms that change in a quite relevant way. So I did that. At least I tried. And I did bring evidence that we can see right now and test right now.
Luca, again, and before Kent responds, let me just reiterate this a little bit. I do want the audience to follow. By endosymbiosis, are you arguing that the mitochondrial DNA is essentially an example of an ancient bacteria or bacterial DNA that is existing inside us?
Yes, as I said, we do have genetic evidence for the relationship. We do have a bunch of structure that are basically the same of bacterial ones, and that's something interesting. You will agree on that.
So because of the similarities in the mitochondrial DNA within us to bacterial DNA, you are saying that this is an example of endosymbiosis, that basically the mitochondrial DNA is the result of an ancient bacteria?
As I said, it's not just the DNA. We have a bunch of evidence. We do have
mitochondrial
an
DNA
example in nature. If you remember the salamander, the eggs can do photosynthesis. So that's the example of endosymbiosis
Okay, so that's the
happening
specific
in real life. Then DNA,
Okay, I'm just gonna mute you. I'm gonna have you both muted. I want us to all get back on track. I think the points have been established. I want to give Kent the opportunity to respond to that if he'd like to, Luca. And then I know on your slides, you had a couple slides where you had pictures. One is not like the other. I know you wanted to make sure that you got those points in there before we wind it down and get some audience questions. So let's allow Kent to respond. And then if you'd like to transition to those images, Luca, before we wind it down, we can do that as well. Kent, floor is yours, brother.
Well, I stand my ground. There are similarities between us and all life forms because we have the same designer. How many different types of programs, Randall, how many programs does Microsoft produce? A bunch. Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint. I'd be willing to bet $5 that they have lots of similarities in those programs. I think if I'm working in Microsoft Word and I click spell check, it takes me to the same dictionary with millions of lines of code that if I'm working in PowerPoint and click spell check. They both go to the same millions of lines of code, same dictionary. What does that prove? The same guys are writing the code. They're not going to rewrite the code every time. So God chose to write all life forms with an amazing code of 4-bit code instead of 2. Not just zeros and ones, it's 4. It's thousands of times more complex than any computer ever, code ever written by man. I just quickly Googled here, how many kinds of bacteria are there? Earth might be home to 1 trillion species of microbes. Different types of bacterial classification, more complex than one based on basic factors. There are differences in the bacteria. So what? There are differences in the cars too. How many different varieties of Fiat are there? I don't know. Bunch. How many different varieties of Chevy? A whole bunch. Same guys are writing them. So what you're sharing is interesting information that is not evidence for evolution. It's showing clearly, I think, to the audience that you want to believe is related, but it doesn't show a relationship. It shows it could just as much be a common designer. So I think you're imagining that it happened. It's not science. Go ahead.
Yes, I just try my best to bring evidence, so a real-time one, things that we can observe right now. Also, yes, bacteria, it's not a family, it's an entire kingdom. To be clear, Animalia animals are an entire kingdom. We are talking about something that huge. So a bacteria that's still a bacteria. It's the same to say that a cicada and us, we are the same thing. It's quite huge. So yeah, that were my points. If you want to say something to me, more than happy to answer.
Okay, so Luca, those were your main points you were saying. I was under the assumption you wanted to go over those few pictures with Kant. One
Yes,
is
if
not
you
like the
want
other.
to.
Well, why don't we
Yes.
do that real quick in the last 2 minutes, and then we're going to
Okay.
transition into some
I
audience
have
questions.
to show my slides.
Sure, if you'd like to pull them up, Luca.
Yes, more than willing to. So yes.
And to the audience, endosymbiosis and this theory or hypothesis as to how the mitochondrial DNA compartment came about. It's a technical issue. It's a complicated one. And so as moderator, all I was doing was reiterating Luca's points to help them be conveyed to the audience in hopefully an understandable way.
Okay.
And so, okay, Luca, go ahead if you'd like to ask
Okay.
Kent a couple questions on that before we move into
So
audience questions.
on the first one, let's see. Look at that. Kant, as you see, those are animal and plant cells. As you see, they are basically the same. The cell walls are a little bit different. Of course, plants, they do have a different structure because they do have different components. They are more rigid, a little bit bigger, but if you look at the cell, basically it's the same. They do have a nucleus, they do have basically the same organelles. The only different things are chloroplasts. So we can agree on that.
As I answered earlier on this slide you showed, all four of those are different. You can decide to classify them how you want. I could say the virus and the plant cell both are green. Wow, that puts them together. How are you making this division? We have decided that a virus is not considered alive. Some scientists have decided that. Okay? I don't think the virus
How
cares how.
can do that? Well, it's simple. Here you have DNA floating inside the cell. Here you have a nucleus. Here you have a nucleus. The same kind of structure you can see here and that. They are basically the same. We do have chloroplasts. Those are a little bit different, but the mitochondria are the same, basically the same structure. Golgi apparatus, it's the same. The cell, it's basically the same. If you look a cell from a plant and from an animal, you need to be an expert to see the difference and to have some kind of coloration to be sure, because they are basically the same. At this level, we are the same, basically.
Well, that's your choice to believe that. But an animal cell is very different than a plant cell. Both of them are incredibly complex. You could have a computer that looks, you have a computer that looks just like somebody else's computer. You flip the lid open, you have a laptop computer, it's got a keyboard. Does that prove something? They're both
Sorry,
really.
Kent, can you explain to me why they are those two different?
I think they're
Aside
very
from
different.
chloroplasts that are organelles that, for what we can understand, they were included in a cell in a second moment.
Plant cells have a cell wall to make them rigid. Animal cells do not, except for bone structure. Maybe a few others do. I don't remember now. But the plant cells have chloroplasts, so they can use sunlight. And we can't do that. We're different than plants. But man can eat the plants and digest them. The same designer made both of them. They're both amazingly complex. Some cars have the engine in the front. Some cars have the engine in the back. That's a good design. Either way, they've both designed, though.
the only difference are chloroplast and the cell wall.
Oh, I did not
That's
say that.
not
There are no many more differences than that.
like what?
Those are just two quick ones. The DNA code would be different in each one. Every single plant has
Of course, but that's different for each organism. Of course, we have a different DNA, you and I. It's not like we can count that.
the DNA code of a carrot is way different than the DNA code of an elephant. Do you believe carrots are related to elephants?
Yes, and I show you why, because those cells are very much alike. Of course, they do have a difference because one it's a plant and one it's an animal. But if you look at it, they are basically the same thing. They are almost the same. Only two difference, basically. Chloroplast, that for what we can tell, they were included in a second time, and the cell wall. That's an adaptation. It's not that much of a difference. Sorry, Ken.
Well, you are claiming it's an adaptation. Is any other animal cell adapting to include chloroplast? Are you related to a carrot also, Luca?
Yes, I did show you something like that with the salamander. It was not a chloroplast, of course, but it was something like a protochloroplast. So we have that.
Yeah. You have chosen to believe that the plants adapted chloroplast. That's not science. That's a belief. You can't see this happening. Why doesn't it happen? Why don't we see it happening today? Make a chloroplast in the laboratory, and all that would prove is it takes intelligent designers to make chloroplast. The plant.
I did give you an example right now with the salamander.
I guess I didn't see it. All I see is you giving evidence of what you think are similarities. Therefore, it means common ancestor, and that's a lousy conclusion. I think it's just as much evidence of a common designer who's writing this complex code. You're showing four different things: animal cell, plant cell, fungi, bacteria. They could be classified in any number of ways. I would point out they are all different.
What kind
Gentlemen,
of
hey,
Yes.
gentlemen, I just want to jump in. Excellent discussion, very cordial, very professional. Luca, I appreciate you being easygoing and a good sport. And I think this has been a great technical discussion, but I do want to wrap it up here because we did say we're going to make it slightly shorter tonight, and we do have some solid audience questions. And so rather than 5-minute closing statements, let's each take 2 minutes to wrap up our thoughts and points. Luca, let's start with you. So we'll give you 2 minutes for a concluding statement. We'll do the same for Kent, and then we'll get into some audience questions. So Luca, the floor is yours.
Yes, in this debate, I did not bring much evidence. I did bring some with the mitochondria, but my whole point was not that. I want to show that the whole point of evolution is not that far-fetched. We are not that different from a plant if you look from close enough. If you look at the cell, you can see a pattern, and once you start to see that, you can start to understand why we have this hypothesis. And it's no longer an hypothesis, it's a theory, the evolution theory. But for someone that does not believe in that, I want to show why we came to that conclusion, and why it's not something made to talk bad about God or anything like that. It's just a scientific theory. And I just want to bring the people in to show those things, to make people curious about it. And you do not need to change your idea. I do not want to break anyone's faith. It's not my point. I just want to for people to love science, to know more and to find out more about the universe we are in. I can close it at that.
Well, thank you very much, Luca, for your closing statement. Always a pleasure to have you here. And also, I just want to tell you, I appreciate you being willing to engage these discussions on ancestry, evolution, and creation. So with that, Dr. Dino, we're going to hand it over to you now. And you have 2 minutes for a concluding statement. Go ahead.
And thank you, Luca. I know it's, 3:30 in the morning over there in Italy now. I spoke in Italy. You got a beautiful country, but you got some people that believe some dumb things, like they came from a rock, okay? I would agree there are similarities between some of the unicellular organisms and some of the multicellular organisms. That doesn't prove a common ancestry. It proves a common designer. The ocean is home to 2.9 times 10 to the 29th power unicellular organisms. That's 29 zeros behind it. That's a lot, okay? There's no such thing as a simple life form. If it's alive, it's complicated. The bacteria, amoeba, have 670 trillion base pairs of genomes. That's a lot, okay? Lily only has 90 trillion. Amoeba is more complex than a lily. A mouse, a human's only got 3 trillion. It would be simpler and easier to build a space shuttle and launch it into space than to make a single-celled organism. You've chosen to believe that these similarities prove a common ancestor, that prokaryotes and eukaryotes both have a nucleus. That's a great design. It works. I think a lot of animals have a brain to run things in their body too, until they get to college and learn evolution, then they lose that. But this is not evidence for common ancestry. I don't know how you can't see it. This is so complex. You said you see a pattern here. Yay. Patterns are made by pattern makers. If you see a building, you know there was a builder. You don't have to see the guy. You know there was a builder. If you see a painting, you know there was a painter. When you see a creation, why can't you admit there's a creator? Okay, questions from the audience.
Kent, thank you very much for that 2-minute concluding statement. So Luca and Kent, that wraps things up. Again, thank you for a great discussion and some interesting points discussed. So we're going to get right into some audience questions. And so here we go. We'll get through as many as we can. We've had a good audience. People are expressing how much they've missed our evolution debate challenge. We do 2 or 3 of these a week. And so to the audience, we do have several more set with Kent over the next month. Okay, so here we go. First question is for Luca. Luca, Taylor K has a question for you. The bacteria flagellar motor is labeled as the most efficient machine in the universe. How did it originate, and did it come about all at once or slowly evolve into its present state? Go ahead, Luca.
Yes. First of all, yes, it's quite something. The flagellar motor, it's a very interesting structure. It's made by protein. So yes, first of all, it's not the most efficient way. There are more efficient way to swim, basically. But for sure, it's a very interesting topic. How it come to be? Basically with the mutation. It's not that simple because, as you all know, mutation do create proteins, and proteins bends in a certain way. So what you need is the right combination of DNA and to make those proteins. Why we can get to that? Well, we just need to have some kind of functional protein, not even the full motor, but something that can give the cell some kind of advantage. From that, you will have selection. The better models will be selected. So in due time, you will have something like that. We can observe those kind of structure creating, basically. the one doing some good videos on that. It's much more expert on me on these topics. It's Dan Stan Cardinal, if you want to see those kind of things.
Luca, appreciate the response. Kent, the floor is yours if there's anything you'd like to add.
Well, thank you, Taylor, for the question. Come visit Dinosaur Adventureland again. We'd love to have you. Taylor, you got to watch Emma Thorne. I did a Whack an Atheist with Emma Thorne last night on our Rumble channel. If you want to watch that, Kent Hovind Official on Rumble, and see poor Emma. She talked about you, Taylor, and I defended you. So watch that. Anyway, the bacteria flagellum is incredibly complex. It can turn up to 60,000 RPM, revolutions per minute. It spins around, and it can stop in a quarter turn and reverse and go the other way. The bacteria can be swimming one way, stop in a quarter turn, going 100,000 or 60,000 RPM, and reverse and go the other way. I think the bacteria flagellum motor is complex beyond our imagination. Let me see you get a gasoline engine and put in your Fiat that goes 100,000 or 80,000 or 60,000 RPM. It's pretty tough to get an engine to go 10,000 RPM without blowing up all over the sky. So these things are incredibly complex. You can claim they're simple if you wish. That's not simple. Study bacteria flagellum, really analyze it, watch a bacteria swim with it, and then tell me you think it happened by chance. If I told you the Maserati engine happened by chance, you would think I was crazy. But this thing is way more complex and doesn't break down like the Maserati. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kent. Luca, you get the last word.
Yes, it does not work like that. When you have proteins, once you get the right sequence, the protein will fall itself. So we can reproduce that kind of rotor. We do know how it works. If I remember correctly, it's a proton pump. Maybe I'm wrong. I did not study that for tonight. I will need to refresh a little on that subject, but I did see that rotor. It's quite something for sure, but it's not something supernatural, something we cannot produce on our own. Of course, when you have something like a Maserati, it's a different thing, because you need to drag a very heavy object around, so you need more energy, you need some kind of structure. It's not that simple when you scale up a motor. So there is that.
Okay, thank you, Luca. And moving on to the next question now. And the question comes in from Angelo Lagruta. Thank you for the support. And question for Luca. How can non-intelligence create intelligence if we all come from a common ancestor? What was the first life form and how did it come alive? And how was it able to reproduce successfully before it would have died? Go ahead, Luca.
Yes, first of all, we do perceive intelligence, but we do it from our point of view. How we can get to this point? That's quite a long trip, I can say. Life, it's a combination of factors. I think that the first living thing was not even a cell. It was something simpler. We do see organisms that are more simple. There is a domain of life that's non-cellular. So we do see compounds and organic things do things that are like life. I think about protocells. We do have some experiment on that. I did the talk about that, David Dreaman and things like that. I will, maybe, I hope, do a debate on abiogenesis, so I will talk about these arguments in more detail. It's a long story. I cannot take a couple of hours to explain everything.
Okay, thank you very much, Luca. Kent, over to you.
Excellent question. I don't think it can happen. I think the intelligent designer created intelligence. I think his name is God. I think he wrote a book to tell us how he did it, as much as our little brain can hold. And someday we'll get to see him and he'll explain the rest of it to us. I'm looking forward to that day. So I think we had to have an intelligent designer. There's no other logical conclusion that I can see.
Thank you, Kent. Luca, you can have a quick final word since it's
Yes, Angelo, I did not answer because it's quite a complex answer. As I said, the first living thing was not even a cell. It was something that was in between, not alive, not dead, like a virus. Virus, of course, they cannot exist on their own, but you think about something that do some process that are in common with life, but not all of them. It was something like that. You can get 2% cells from chemicals, and we have experiment for that. Something like that. Then selection starts, and you can have more and more complex things. I hope that's a good answer for you.
Okay, thank you very much there, Luca. Next question is for Kent. Mark Reed, appreciate the super chat, the support, and also for the question. So it's for you, Kent, this time. And Mark Reed is asking, how do you explain why humans have common endogenous retroviral elements with other organisms? Did God insert viruses into organisms just to fool us?
I don't think our modern science knows nearly enough about the design of the human body or the design of viruses to understand why. If I got into a car and said, what does this button do? The fact that I don't know what it does doesn't mean it doesn't do something. There's a lot of things about the computer I don't know. But still, it doesn't prove nobody designed it. So I think this is the argument from ignorance here. The ERVs, the human endogenous retrovirus, the fact that there are similarities or differences, again, is a designer, not a common ancestor. You wish to believe human ERVs are DNA sequence within human. They have 8% of the human genome. Maybe they do something. On a biological level, the main difference is bacteria are free-living cells, while viruses are non-living collection of molecules that need a host to survive. Many bacteria help us, living in our gut. Similarly, not all viruses are bad. We now know there are also beneficial viruses in our gut, skin and blood, that can kill undesirable bacteria and dangerous viruses. In our oceans, there are 10 billion times more bacteria than there are stars in the universe. Laid end to end, let's see, the virus, all the world laid end to end would stretch for 100 million light years. Microorganisms living harmlessly on and in our bodies outnumber human cells 10 to 1. So I think to say that viral genome, that ERVs are junk DNA or unnecessary or harmful is showing a lack of intelligence to make that conclusion. I think they were designed. Go ahead.
Thank you very much there, Kent. Luca, floor is yours if you'd like to respond.
Yes, of course, I do agree with Mark. We do know the mechanism for the inclusion of RNA elements inside the genome. We know that can happen. We do know how it happened. And I think that's very good evidence for common ancestry. I leave at that.
Okay, Luca, thank you very much. Kent, you get the final word if you'd like it. The question was for you.
Yeah, again, I think we are just scratching the surface of understanding the human body, the ERVs, the viruses, the bacteria. We are very complex. And I think there are things that we need that we don't know yet. For years, they had listed, I think it was 140 vestigial structures. The doctors were told, you don't need that. When a kid went into sick in the hospital for any reason, take out the tonsils. Now we know you need the tonsils. Do you need your appendix? Yeah, if it goes bad, you might have to take it out, but it's a useful organ. Everything. People say the textbooks say the tailbone is vestigial. You don't need it anymore. There are 9 muscles that attach to the tailbone that allow you to make babies. If you think the tailbone's vestigial, I will pay to have yours removed. I'll remove it myself. I know right where it's at. I got a Swiss Army knife. I'll even clean it before I wash, okay? So this is dumb. The fact that we don't know the function of something does not mean it doesn't have a function. I think it means we don't have the knowledge to make a guess yet. And the ERVs, I can show you clearly, are not evidence for evolution. Some of them play a key role. We simply don't know. Some of them might have gone bad. You can have all kinds of things start off good and go crazy. Your motor in your car can run great and then blow up and kill you while you're driving. So what? That doesn't prove nobody made the motor. Anyway, ERVs are not evidence for evolution at all. They're evidence for creation. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Kent. Mark, thanks for the question. And moving on to the next. So great questions from the audience today. Much appreciated. So the next question comes in from Who, What, When. Thank you for the support, super chat, and question for Luca this time. So Luca, the question is up on the screen for you, and it is, you would point to similarities. What about the differences we see between animal families and the lack of time to produce them? Example, human hair and chimp fur, and why?
Yes, so lack of time. First of all, we do in our model, of course, do have a lot of time. I need to know why time would not be enough for those changes, and also chimp for it's basically the same as our air. It's not like it's different. We do have less air, of course, but not even in number. They are just smaller, shorter. It's just like that. There are not much difference between those two things. So, yeah.
Thank you, Luca. Kent, if there's anything you'd like to add, go ahead.
Well, I think the similarities or differences are designed from the beginning. All we've ever seen is chimpanzees make baby chimpanzees. Nobody's ever seen anything other than that. So science, what we can see and observe and study and test. That's what we see. That's science. To say chimpanzees and humans are related is not science. It's a religion. I think it's a real dumb one, but you're welcome to it. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kent. Luca, you can have the quick last word if you'd like.
Yes, I have nothing to say. Basically, we have the same kind of hair than apes. We are still apes. Not because I want to insult anyone. We have the same characteristic of apes. That's what I mean with that.
Okay, thank you, Luca. And next question comes in from, let's see here. Okay, so question for Luca from Our Savior. What about dinosaurs found with flesh and tissue and blood vessels still on them after supposedly 100 million years? What are your thoughts on that, Luca?
Well, it's not that simple. First of all, it's a good question because it's something interesting, but it's not like we did find flesh. We cannot cook a dinosaur stick unless it's a bird, of course. But we did find some soft tissues, but those soft tissues are alterated. It's not like it's the fresh thing. It's something different. It's soft somewhat, but it's not the original kind of tissues. They were changes. There is a lot of iron in it, if I remember correctly. So it's not that simple. It's not fresh meat, and they are very small amount of that, and scientists are trying to find a mechanism for those kind of structures, but we need to remember that's not the same tissues of a live animal, and there are very small quantities of it.
Thank you, Luca. Kent, floor is yours.
I think it is very sad that scientists have locked themselves into a little box. If I told you I want you to search all over Conecuh County, Alabama, until you find Rome, Italy. You're not going to find it. It's not in Connecticut County, Alabama, okay? And they are looking for, wow, we find dinosaur bones that are soft tissue and still flexible. How can we explain this with millions of years? Stop. You're stuck in the wrong box. Get out of the millions of years box. You've already decided dinosaurs lived 100 million years ago. Now, how do we explain this soft tissue? The problem is you've already decided something stupid. They're not hundreds of millions of years old. The Bible says the scoffers at the end of time would be willingly ignorant of the creation and the flood. The flood of Noah 4,500 years ago buried lots of animals, and they're not millions of years old. They were preserved in mud. Some of them still have soft tissue. They're not hundreds of millions of years old. They're 4,500 years old. That's why. Simple.
Thank you, Kent. Luca, you can have the final word. Questions for you?
Yes. The point is, we do have soft tissues, but soft tissues does not mean we have dinosaur meat or anything like that. But we do have very small quantities in very well preserved bones. It's not like you can pick up a dinosaur bone and you will find soft tissue in it. It's quite hard to do. All those points are leaning to we need to find a mechanism because it's not fully explained for what I can tell, but all the points to an explanation. Those tissues are that old for what we can tell, and there is a reason for it. There is an explanation yet for what I can tell, no, but the evidence points that way.
Okay, Luca, thank you so much. Next question comes in from Donnie's blue shirt. So I do like my blue SFT shirt. That is right. And so question is for Luca, the last universal common ancestor of this debate. Question short and sweet. Where are all these missing link fossils?
Well, you need to define a missing link because you are talking about the Velociraptor with feathers, Archaeopteryx. That was that one. There are a lot of those, but you need to define what a missing link is to me to give an answer.
Okay, thank you, Luca. Kent, if you'd like to add anything, go ahead.
There's no chain. It's not missing links we're looking for. The whole chain is missing. It doesn't exist. They're assuming, with that question even, those who are looking for missing links are assuming that there are links. Humans, he said, we are still apes. Luca, we are not still apes. You can believe that if you wish. But you've got this chain going from a bacteria all the way to humans in your mind. That's not reality. Bacteria only make baby bacteria. Humans only make baby humans. There simply are no exceptions. If you wish to believe that, I'm sorry, somebody taught you that, but it's not true. The missing links, they don't exist. You can keep looking for them if you want, but quit using everybody's funds to do that. Take it out of your own pocket. Go look for all the missing links you want.
Appreciate it, Kent. Luca, quick final word. Question was for you.
Well, we do have a record. You can argue that's not the case, but we do. We have a bunch of organisms, and we do have organisms in between, like birds and dinosaurs. We have something like Archaeopteryx. The Velociraptor was something interesting too. It had feathers, so we have that. Microraptor is another example. We have some of those. Of course, we need to specify what a missing link is, and then I can give an answer. I gave some example for sure.
Okay, Luca, thank you. And gentlemen, we are going to have to wrap it up here. So we got one final question, and it is a question for the both of you. So we'll get one response each, and then we are going to close it down for the night. So again, I appreciate the debate. And the question comes in from Mitchell. Question for both. So Luca, why don't we start with you? And the question is, why did the octopus evolve camouflage if it wasn't in danger and had to adapt millions of years ago to current?
Well, adaptation does not work like that. You have mutation, and if that mutation is doing something useful for you at the moment, like it changes the color of your skin. If you live in a desert, very light sand, and you are more dark, you are more easy to find. It could be a good thing or not, depends if you are a prey or not, basically. If it's that change is doing something good for you, it will be selected because more of your kind will survive. It's how it works. It's not like you need a mutation and then you get it. You get a mutation, and if it's doing something good for you, you will survive more. Reproduce more. You can survive and not be selected. You can die from old age. It's not like you are successful if you produce more offspring, basically.
Thank you, Luca. This is the last question. It's a question for both. Luca, you got to answer. Kent, you get to answer now. You get the final word, and then we're going to wrap it up. Go ahead.
The octopus did not evolve camouflage. They were designed. They can change the color of their skin almost instantly. It is phenomenal. I can't do that. Don't you think humans would wish they could evolve camouflage for the running around for thousands of years, turning into humans? And why can't any of them just decide to turn green, to hide in the woods? Why not? It was designed to do what it does. The camouflage mechanism in an octopus is unbelievably complex. They can change colors like that to thousands of different camouflage patterns. They get on a rock, they look like the rock. They get in the seaweed, they look like the seaweed. I think stuff like that, God put things like that in nature just to make it look like, wow, there's a designer. I wish you evolutionists would get out of that dumb little box you've locked yourself in and see the glory of God in nature. God designed the octopus. I can look at the octopus and say, wow, God, you are smart. You guys can't do that. I feel sorry for you. Go ahead.
Okay, Kent, thank you so much for the response to that final question of the night. We've come to the end of the debate. Luca and Kent, thank you so much for your time. And why don't we get some quick final thoughts, final words? Luca, let's start with you. Been a little while since you've been here, but it's great to see you back in the ring. Go ahead.
I cannot wait to debate more. That's my hobby, and I have a lot of fun doing it. I was really busy in these days. We have a lot of work at school, but that's good too. And I cannot wait to do more. Maybe on abiogenesis, I did offer that for Ken too, if he wants. So it was a blast to be here. I'm very grateful for being invited on this channel. It was fun.
Well, thank you, Luca. You are always welcome here, as you are always professional and cordial in these debates. So Dr. Kent, the science gent, thank you as well for being here. These debates are always a ton of fun, and I look forward to many more of these in 2023. So some final thoughts, final words, Kent?
Well, Luca, I've only been to Italy once. See if I can practice my Italian. Grazie per essere unito a me. Thank you for joining me. Did I get it close? No, never mind. Okay. You talk funny over there.
I'm sorry, I did not understand. What were you trying to say?
Grazie per esserti unito a me. Thank you for joining me.
Grazie per esserti unito a me.
There. Okay.
Close
yes.
enough.
Thank you. glad you do this. I'm going to pray for you. I want God to speak to your heart and get you into his kingdom. He would like to forgive your sin and save you. I don't see how people can look at something complex like the scale of a lizard or the shell of a snail and think it happened by chance. I don't understand. All life forms came by no designer. Beam me up, Scotty. There's no intelligent design down here. I think anybody that would open their eyes and say, wow, there must have been a designer. How can people not see it? You really think this happened by chance? Nobody made this? There's no designer. It came from a dot smaller than a proton, exploding 13.772 and 26 years ago, billion years ago. I see design everywhere I look, and I don't have a problem praising the designer. I know him personally. He's my friend. He's my father. He's going to take me to heaven someday. I don't deserve it, but I'm forgiven. He'd like to do that with you. So I think anybody who would look at nature and say, wow, nobody made this, needs their head examined. I think somebody made all of it. I glorify God for his creation. I encourage you to come visit Alabama. Come to Dinosaur Adventureland. We'll put you up in one of our cabins, give you the tour around here. You can sit here right beside me. We'll do a debate right here from Dinosaur Adventureland in Lennox.
I would love to do that, actually. I need to take my passport to make the passport, but I would love to, maybe.
You're invited.
And I'll join you both for an in-person debate. I'll moderate in person. So Kent and Luca, again, thank you so much.
I will, Adoni. Be careful, because I can't do that.
Yeah. Sounds fun. Okay, to the audience, thanks for the great questions. We're going to let the debaters get out of here. Guys, I am going to be back in about 1 minute for some special announcements and reminders. So Kent and Luca and the audience, God bless. SFT
Thank
is
you.
out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back just for a few minutes here. I wanted to thank everybody for their questions. We had a ton of great questions. I know it's been, I think, a few weeks actually since we've done a debate in the Evolution Debate Challenge series, which we started in 2022. And so if you do check the playlist, you should find 60 or more debates in this series. And we do have several more now scheduled for the end of this month, but also all throughout March. And so for anybody who joined us for the entire, if you do have questions, yes, Joe Friday, I do see you in the chat. I am monitoring the chat. So please, if you have a question, let me know. So Redefine Living, appreciate that, brother. My award-winning co-host, Slam RN says, time flies. It is true. Time does fly. This debate flew by 2 hours. I always appreciate when Luke is here. and I appreciate when Kent is here. So they always have a good back and forth, very professional debate. And so for anybody who is with us the entire time, I think in over 500-ish shows, that was the first time that ever happened. So I don't know what it was, but we were live for about 10 minutes, 10-ish minutes. Luca was into his opening statement. We got done intros. And from my end, it wasn't showing anybody in the chat. And so when I looked over on YouTube, I could see that it had not started yet on YouTube. I don't know what the issue was. I tried to look it up, and I couldn't find any information on it. So maybe it was just a fluke, first time for everything, but we still got the debate going. And so I don't know how it's going to transcribe, because it does say that it recorded the whole thing. And therefore, maybe the missing 8 to 10 minutes, once it's all loaded up on YouTube, it might be there. If not, I'm not too sure. I do usually re-premiere these on our other channel, Young Earth Creation. So make sure you're subscribed there. And so I'll download the recording, re-upload it there, and we'll have hopefully the full debate. But the 8 to 10 minutes was just intros, and we restarted Luca's opening anyways. So you guys didn't miss anything, although I'd like to know why that happened. Definitely interesting. Alex Glenn asks, have you ever done a creation versus evolution debate? Yes, I have had 100 formal debates. I've had a lot of open mic discussions and things like that. But in terms of the debates that I've done, I've specifically focused on basically 3 topics: creation versus evolution, with a focus on ancestry. And so if you look at the channel, or you go to my website, Standing for Truth Ministries, standingfortruthministries.com, and you'll find a lot of my debates there on the main page. I've done a lot of debates on endogenous retroviruses. I've done a lot of debates on genetics and ancestry. I have done debates on the age of the earth, debates on eschatology, and debates on soteriology. So if you are new to this channel, please check those out. I just did a podcast debate about 2 weeks ago with Snake Was Right on genetic entropy. Redefine Living, I think, is being sarcastic there. Redefine Living, I appreciate your uploads over on your channel, brother. It looks like you had a good discussion the other day with a skeptic, so very cool. Let me see here. Yeshua is King. Appreciate the question. In college, I took nursing. So I worked as a full-time nurse here in Canada for about 6 years. So let's see. Redefine Living, SFT, just need more coffee. I seen one question that had to do with the show. I think it was from, oh, here it is. Aussie Gold. When it was up, it started, it started pretty much instantly. I noticed that as well. And so it basically just started instantly 10 minutes into us recording. So I don't know if anybody knows StreamYard better than me. I would be curious to know why that happened and how I can avoid it in the future. Doki Doki Bible Club, appreciate that. So if you go to our podcast website as well, I do currently we have about 90 episodes up on the podcast. You can find us on Google, Spotify, Apple, all of the most popular podcasts out there. The website is completely updated, tons of content added to it. We got a new blog section. I've been co-authoring a genetic entropy article, technical article. It's currently in review right now. I'm really excited for everybody to see it. I'm co-author on it. The main author is Christopher Roop, who wrote Contested Bones. Behind me, his work has been a blessing, and he has been a real help in terms of population genetics. And so I've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work on genetics, population genetics. And so our technical article should be hopefully ready. Again, it's in review, hopefully ready in the next few days. And I will upload it to the website. It'll be on, from what I understand, the Genetic Entropy website. It's really cool. It's really cool news. So when we get that out, I'm excited for everybody to see. I would say it's a game changer. And okay, what I wanted to cover real quick. So I'm going to have to take a break from the live chat just for a couple seconds because I want to go over what we have coming up. So we've got T-Rock and Grayson, two excellent debaters. T-Rock being the young earth creationist, Grayson being an evolutionist, but they're both experienced. They both have had numerous debates, and a lot of people have wanted to see T-Rock and Grayson go at it. Grayson's been here. He's had a couple debates with Kent. He's had two formal debates with me, one informal. He always puts up a good challenge. So him and T-Rock, they'll be debating this weekend on Saturday. And Grayson actually has a channel based theory, and they've got an after show. It might have already started. I'm not too sure. So definitely check that out. This is going to be fun. T-Rock debated Mark Reed, another fantastic debater in the debate community. And they debated, I believe it was last month, although time does fly. They had a great debate. And so I'm really looking forward to this one on Saturday. Speaking of Mark Reed, Mark, thanks for the super chat, support, and question tonight. Is there evidence for the existence of God? So I would say this is one of our main events this month because Paul Price, he's written a ton on this topic. He has done debates on this topic. He debated Snake Was Right a month or two ago here on this topic. And this is going to be a formal debate. Now, when I say formal, I mean formal. It is going to be very structured. And if you want an understanding in terms of the structure of this debate exactly, we've done this format twice before, both with Paul. So Paul's debate with Snake Was Right. And then he also did a debate here over 2 years ago now with Dr. Ron Garrett on genetic entropy. So this is coming up, if I'm not mistaken, in about 9 days. And so Mark Reed and Paul Price, Mark Reed, experienced debater. So he's going to be here to take on Paul Price. This is going to be fun. Tom Walden says, looking forward to T-Rock and Grayson. Yes, I think that is going to be an excellent debate. And so if there's anybody that wants to step into the debate octagon, I guess you could say, and you've never done a debate before, reach out to me. And I've had plenty of requests lately come in through the website. New debaters. I always love seeing new faces. We've had a lot of new faces here recently. And typically what I'll do is set up a day and time with new debaters, and I'll meet with them. A week before their debate, a few days before, whatever's convenient for them. And we'll test out the stream, test out the connection. I'll show them how to share screen, just get them comfortable with the StreamYard, get them comfortable with doing a debate. And so I'm always looking for new faces, whether it's in soteriology, the Bible translation topic. I'm looking for more interested debaters for that topic. Please do reach out. Same with soteriology, of course, creation versus evolution. We'd like to do more debates specifically on Noah's Ark and the flood. And so I've got at least 3 creationists, including our flood geologist, Professor David McQueen. They are looking for more debates specifically on Noah's Ark and the flood. We just had a worldwide flood debate just last week. David McQueen versus Mark Siegel. That was a ton of fun. Age of the Earth. I've got at least 4 for that topic. Creationists willing to debate that topic. So anyways, people who are not creationists, reach out. And what I'd like to do, especially for April, especially throughout the summer, I want to do a lot more debate marathons. The months fly by. Summer will be here in no time. I'm currently booking for April. And so I like to book 2 months in advance. Next month, we've got a ton of debates, a lot of debates on some controversial topics like dispensationalism. We've got a lot more creation evolution debates. I keep my thumbnail guy busy. So once I get all the thumbnails in, probably this weekend, should be about 12. I will get them all up on the channel, and they will be there for you guys to see and to mark off. I'm looking at the chat again. Joe Friday, I know you wanted to ask a question there, brother. So let me scroll up and see if I can find it. Bond says Mark Reed challenged Centurion to a debate. Definitely. Anybody who wants to debate, just let me know, and we'll set it up. Tom Walden. Yeah, we got Jamie from Studio 215. He'll be back here next month debating James W. So they'll be debating just the classic creation versus evolution topic. And then we've got James W. debating Snake Was Right, round 2, first week of March. They'll be debating single cell to multi-cell evolution. That'll be the first week of March. So they'll be kicking off March. Mark Reed and Praise I Am. The word is we are going to discuss details on a debate between them on morality. So Mark and Praise, anticipate an email. And there's Doki Doki Bible Club. So that is the new email I've been using to keep things organized. All of my requests on the website, which there's a lot of them, and sometimes it floods the email, that comes in on my other account, standfortruthministries@gmail.com. I'm using specifically to set up debates. And Joe Friday, no worries. If your question was answered, that's good. Just scrolling up and seeing what else we have here. Okay, so we do have, again, a lot to look forward to. Mr. Decker says moderated debates or conversations, both. So we do a good mix of moderated, but then also conversations. Since I do the moderating here, I'll oftentimes engage in just conversations with people of the opposing side. And you can find a playlist where I've done that. I've had discussions, just conversation style, no moderator, on endogenous retroviruses, ancestry, creation, evolution. You can find that on the website, but also the playlist section. Okay, let's see where else. After show link, Doki Doki Bible Club. Appreciate that. Okay, yeah, reach out to that email and we'll set up debates, whatever your favorite topics are. People wondering about the evolution debates. Yes, we'll be here. This will be an early one. So this one's all confirmed. Christian Dean was sick a couple weeks ago when we had this scheduled, and it's good news. He is feeling better, and so this is rescheduled, if I'm not mistaken, for the 21st. This will be an earlier one, 4 o'clock EST my time. Cramp, appreciate that, brother. God bless you. We've also got Snake Was Right and Kent. They'll be going at it again. Rescheduled, I think, for March 7th. It is up on the channel, so please check that out. KJV only debates. We've got many more of those coming up. We've got a warnings of Hebrews debate coming up as well. Charles Jennings and Dan Chapa. So again, stay tuned. Within the next week, you're going to see a lot of the debates that are scheduled for March and April. They're going to pop up on the channel, and so you can hit that reminder. Cheryl, good point, sister. I just noticed 12.9 thousand. And so we are very close to hitting the 13,000 subscriber mark. Please share this around to your friends, share it around to family, get the word out, and help us hit 13,000 and hopefully 20,000, the next big goal. And if you're not subscribed to the secondary channel, which I've been running these days and uploading 2 to 3 videos sometimes a day, re-premiering a lot of our older content. That channel has a flood video that went viral about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, on the flood. Couple million views, and so we racked up quite a few subscribers on that channel, about 24,000 there. And so we've got our 2 main channels here that I can flood YouTube with cool content, debates, discussions, conversations. And I think that's it. I'm looking at the chat, and I think we've got most questions out of the way. Bond, my workout partner, appreciate that. Slam RN, always good to see you, sister. 13,000 subscribers. Just in time for the year of all debates. Last year was a big year for debates, 2022. And I'm doing my best to top last year, this year, with a solid mix of debates. I'm also open to ideas in terms of new topics. For that, you can reach out through email, reach out through the website. I do make sure to see them all. We've got Pastor Chuck. Good to see you. He'll be here next week as well, debating the Marian Dogmas debate with Steve Christie from the Born Again RN YouTube channel. And I'm good thing I just remembered, because we rescheduled from last week. Kelly Powers and CJ Cox, tomorrow they'll be here, 10 o'clock EST. They are going to be debating the T in Tulip. So total depravity. Two excellent debaters, both experienced. Kelly Powers, CJ Cox. Again, that is tomorrow. And that'll start off at 10 EST. And then on Saturday, we've got the much anticipated T-Rock and Grayson debate, who has an after show now. Jim Vaughn. Curious if you received my email from a week or so ago. If it was debate related, I'll double check. I'll catch up on emails tonight. And if you sent it in, it should be there. So I think that's about it. Okay, guys, appreciate your patience tonight and appreciate you sticking around for these announcements and reminders. We've got a lot going on, and so I just wanted to cover several of those, and I'd rather do it after the debate rather than at some point during it. So with that, guys, thank you for tuning in. Share around this content, and we'll see you tomorrow night for Kelly Powers and CJ Cox. God bless.